Thank you.
In all, welcome out to Cabinet on the 6th of September. Good to see you all. First item on the agenda tonight, apologies for absence. I believe we've only got one mention of that in the council, Richard Cox. Next up, declarations of interest. No, as ever, if they come up during the meeting, just barge in and indicate it is for the earliest opportunity. Fairly light agenda tonight. Councillor Strachan will review for the first two items. So over to you and Mr. Thomas for item number 3, Many Matters 2022 to 2023, review of financial performance against financial strategy.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to move the first paper studying my name. This is the first update that I've given this year, and the first one we've been operating fully in the teeth of a crisis, which is affecting us and our businesses, as well as adversely affecting residents across the district. You'll note the main salient point. Well, the first element in this report is the projected use of general reserves to support that budget in year 1, which is largely driven by the factors which I'll discuss in the report. You'll see the key pressures that we face at paragraph 3.5. It will surprise absolutely nobody that our most significant pressures are fuel costs, particularly within the shaping place budget, and the inflationary pressures that we face caused by forecast pay awards and our increased utility bills. You'll see far more detail on those points within Appendix A, and you'll also see details of the pressures, and they're highlighted in blue at 3.5, where projects are in train that are not going to deliver the anticipated income or savings within the originally forecast period. Those accumulated factors contribute to a projected funding gap, particularly in this year, taking that gap in this year back above £1 million and are discussed at 3.12. We do have a number of routes to closing this, including pushing forwards on those projects and a revised approach to our strategic reserves, which will be discussed in my next item. Income from our fees and charges is broadly where we anticipated that it would be. Well, the details that you'll see at Appendix B show that car parking income in particular remains significantly below pre-pandemic levels, although it is now tracking in line with our forecasts at the approved budget stage. The variance in income from property rental of £81,000, which I should have asked actually for details on but didn't, is the only significant variance. You'll also note that there is some minor movement within the capital programme, the majority of which has been discussed at previous meetings and found its way into the approved budget. The variances that you see at 3.22 is self-explanatory, hopefully, being movements between grants and projects or the receipt of grants to deliver projects. I'm delighted to report that we received an allocation from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which can be drawn down over the forthcoming 3 years, and the details of the submitted investment plan that is subject to are contained at paragraph 3.38. Could I at this stage congratulate all officers concerned in preparing that, which appears to be a very robust document, and I've seen it at various iterations. I look forward to seeing that come forward in the coming years. Turning in brief to our collection funds, the council tax fund is in surplus, although it is very early days this year. I am aware of some comprehensive plans to address some of the age debt and historic council tax arrears, and I do hope to get a chance to look at that in the very near future. I'm afraid that's entirely on me, that it hasn't been done in advance of this meeting. The unexpected surplus in those funds is in part funded by increased home completions across the district. And while it's not a way that I intend to plug the gap or would like to see the gap plugged by building on the district, it is welcome that the construction sector has managed to start moving again after the enormous pandemic pause, and we are now reaping a minor benefit from that. The business rates fund is in deficit, which I would hope that members will find unsurprising. I do look forward to working with colleagues on where we can find support or stimulus to come forwards. It is, I note, an improvement on collection at this point last year, which might indicate that there is some degree of business recovery in what is becoming a very, very challenging environment. But it's something that we are aware of and we're looking to. Finally, in opening, if I turn to our investments, we do have significant investments which are subject to ongoing volatility. That is largely due to geopolitical matters that I'm sure are lost on none of us. To give Cabinet a measure of reassurance, I have sought guidance through Anthony, and I'm advised that these are still felt to be investments for a long hold, although we do keep them under constant review. I'm aware that there was a policy conference last day or so with our treasury management advisors, the minutes of which I've received but have not yet had a chance to read. I do look forward to picking up on that to see the forecasts. Are there any questions before I move to the recommendations?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yeah, I'll probably not run this in paper. I'm sure it's in there. You're going to tell me that, Rob, but make it easier for me. In section 3.5, where we're talking about our capital budget, and we've got a pressure of another million or something, I think it was, in terms of we've got less. I understand completely the pressures on the fuel and energy costs, but I think if I read it correctly, there's 578,000 that talks about for non-achievement of planned savings. Have we got any meat on the bones on what that non-achievement and what those planned savings were? Just probably all in our portfolios, I assume, but we probably need some detail on that. It may be in there, I've missed it.
Yeah, it's spread against your portfolios and appears within Appendix A, which I have internally tabulated at page 20. It's broken down line by cost center.
All right, cool.
Some of your questions now.
No, that's fine. I'll take a look. That's absolutely fine. Cheers.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Thank you, Vision, and thank you, Rob, as well, for the paper. I know you're going to come on to your recommendations, and they have like full support. I think it's fantastic to see the award that the council have bid in for and received the changing places, and that's also going to not only offer these facilities at the National Memorial Arboretum, but also as well it's going to bring toilets at the edge of Eden Park that are currently out of use back into use, and obviously serving a specific part of our population that as far as the whole budget is concerned is only one facility at the moment. You've mentioned obviously the UK SBF, and I think that's really going to be transformative in terms of money coming into our district that we will be able to use to bring forward link data space, community facilities and rights of Birdwood, look at skills and development training, which I think is going to be critical in terms of helping all the people in the district looking at new job opportunities that can help them maximise their income in these difficult and challenging times. And certainly in terms of your thanks to the relevant officers, I would echo that and the work that's gone into it. I'm also pleased that it looks like we're also getting some dedicated funds as well to support rural prosperity. And I look forward to working with my officers in terms of the options that are there. You touched on the chemical tax and business rate collection level. And I appreciate this paper is, if you like, the what's happened, the looking backwards. And I know that your next paper to a certain extent is about what comes out of the track. I'm interested in your views, appreciating you and I have talked before at Cabinet, and you have a piece of work underway to look at the moment. With your magic crystal ball, how do you think collection rates are going to go going forward as people obviously face the challenge of rising energy, food, and really all costs in terms of collection rates? Do you anticipate a problem, and what measures are in place if we do see a drop in collection rates to safeguard the services that we provide?
Dealing with those in turn, I'm also delighted to see funding come forward for the changing places toilets, and I have to say I remember when I was chairing the People and Partnerships Overview Committee way back in the dim and distant past, when the first and so far only in this district one came forward, being absolutely astonished at the incredible design of those and how they can improve accessibility for people who otherwise might find very undignified circumstances. And if you find ways to take that, then I'm always welcome it. On the collection levels, it is safe to say that the council tax and business rates is yet another pressure in a very pressured environment, and I accept that. I will do absolutely everything I can to ease that burden, and while it is a statutory burden and one that I can't get away from, there are ways and means that we can hear ways to support people. And I'd also remind Cabinet that we have a brand new and comprehensive local council tax support scheme, which has recently been brought forward to try and include the maximum possible number of people in business rate, in council tax support, and taking them up to potentially 100% support in a number of cases. But we do also retain a discretionary fund, and if people are genuinely struggling, I would encourage them to contact us, to speak to the team, and we will see whether there are ways that we can support people who are genuinely struggling to pay that council tax bill, or whether there are ways that we can support it and find a way. Turning to business rates, it's an incredibly difficult situation for business, particularly with uncapped energy costs and with various increasing costs around the marketplace. I look forward to hearing meaningful proposals from the incoming Prime Minister on how she intends to support the business sector. I understand it's been likely trialed, maybe it's going forward. Where we can bring in stimulus, then I think that we should, and I will have a conversation with my officers about whether there are any ways that we can support people. But it is, I accept, a very challenging situation for business, and I cannot promise to have all the answers. My crystal ball, unfortunately, is rather cloudy about what the next 6 months look like. I will continue peering into it.
Thank you, Rob. Now, obviously, I have very much of your divination skills. That's great. Would you like the 2 minutes as well? Rob, as I said earlier, an awful lot of this paper is to look back in the one that we'll discuss. It was looking forward. That you mentioned at the end, obviously, the paper, I appreciate you said you received it and need time to study it. On one hand, obviously, the Bank of England response to rampant inflation is to raise interest rates. And at one point, I certainly saw a prediction that inflation would peak in October at somewhere around about 13%. The latest one I've seen suggests that inflation could peak in January at around 18%. Now, obviously, in the paper that you've laid before us, and you referenced the one that you're still going through, that these are still the right investments, and perhaps thinking less about, obviously, the volatile equity-backed investment funds that we've got, but our cash returns. Now, obviously, the rate that it's suggesting that we've got on the pure cash is actually less than 1 month return as a reference mark, let alone 3.6 or beyond that. If we're seeing a cash return of less than 1%, but we could see inflation of 18%, the purchasing power of the council's money, like for anybody in their personal life, is actually going backwards. You know, if you want to buy this pen and it's £1, and we put it on deposit and we've got 1% return, we've got £1 and 1p next year, but actually to buy it £1.18 because of inflation. We have a real problem that even though that money is staying safe, it is being eroded in terms of what we would be able to spend on it and the service we'll deliver. Have you anything that you are looking at to address the fact that our cash returns need to be improved just to keep par with where market's at, but equally as well on the other side of it, something else needs to happen. Otherwise, inflation will completely erode that purchasing power.
I accept Councillor Reid's point, and support that he's made before. The issue is merely that we're now in reverse rather more rapidly. The accelerator has been stamped upon by the rate of inflation increasing at the rate that it has. I don't know whether Anthony is able to update us further on any Treasury management advice that we've received. I confess I haven't yet read the document that was sent to me a couple of hours ago. I don't know whether Anthony can update the
I suppose we've got to always bear in mind that in terms of objectives, it's always the acronym SLI, so security, liquidity, and then yield. we have got an element of the portfolio that is higher risk with the strategic investments. They're not returning anywhere near the level of inflation. I'd hazard a guess that there is very few portfolios in the world at the moment that are returning at that level, unless you've got some sort of inflation-linked portfolio and bonds within that. I think the advice we've been given is that we look through the period of volatility. I mean, we've also got to understand as well, a lot of the money that we are investing is not necessarily our money, it's money we're holding on behalf of other bodies, and therefore, whilst we might want a return that is higher than we're currently achieving, we've got to look at the security of that money, because it's not our money. We pay it to people like the county council, the police, the fire organisations, etc., who rely on that money to provide services, and obviously there's a link between the level of risk and the level of return. Okay.
Answer your questions.
It answers, it certainly, and thank you for that, Anthony. I mean, it gives an explanation as to where we are. It's not unfortunately a solution to the problem that we and indeed all households face. All I can do is urge us to keep thinking as much as we can, and to ensure at least the LDC part is trying to get us close to keeping pace with inflation. Appreciating how difficult that is.
Thank you. I'm going to do capital the top now.
Thank you. I welcome obviously the changes that we're intending to implement regarding the supplier payment performance. Obviously, as reading and tracking, as I mentioned earlier, businesses are going to be struggling over the next few months, and certainly one thing we can ensure that we pay them as quick as we can. Councillor Strachan, can you give an idea of time frames of when the new changes will be implemented and when we'll see the effect of those?
Yes, it's true that supplier payment performance has been frustratingly slow to catch up, and it's an impact that is effectively passed on by the accounts. If we don't pay our suppliers on time, then we create additional pressure for business. In terms of the structural changes, I'd have to look to the head of paid service or to members of the leadership teams to when we expect those measures to be in place. I don't yet have a time frame in my mind.
I've got a time frame in mind.
Yesterday, I know, but I'm not yet aware of that.
I think the plan is from the 1st of October, at the latest.
At the latest. Okay, thank you. 1st of October at the latest.
Thank you, Councillor Strachan.
Councillor Axe.
Thank you. It's just when you read through this paper and the following one, for example, you could pick out the figures that are 6 figures, and one classic, shall we say, is the improvements, or whatever you want to call them, to 36 Ball Street, which is ring fence money, part of our homeless strategy. And I think people not in the know, for want of a better word, reading these documents, I don't know if it's possible going forwards that things that are ring fence that aren't our money, or we're required to spend it on specific things, we're very much helping our residents or our homeless in the district, but they're just flagged up. This isn't something we've gone off on a commercial whim of our own. This is very much, in this case, strategized to improve what we can provide under specific policies and strategies.
Yeah, wherever possible, where the money isn't ours, we do try and reference it by saying that it's a grant or that it's money from the Department of Living Up, Housing and Communities. At 3.22, I can see we've done that rather well, relating to 36A Ball Street. But in future reports, I'll certainly commit to, if money isn't ours, we'll face it.
Thank you. Just a suggestion.
Brilliant. Thank you. Any more questions in the paper? If not, Councillor Strachan, do you want to move to your recommendations?
Thank you, Leader. I move recommendations 2.1 through to 2.4, standing in mind.
Brilliant. All those in favour indicate. Thank you very much. That has been passed unanimously. Stick with you, Councillor Strachan, for Money Matters review of reserves.
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet will be aware that we routinely review reserves and earmark reserves, but as part of the wider overhaul of strategic priorities, a more detailed exercise has taken place to consider where we have earmark reserves that are no longer necessary, whether the scale of those earmark reserves remains proper and appropriate to the project that they're envisaged to fund, and what monies we hold could be released to other purposes to benefit the public. The comprehensive review is contained within the report. But the big figure line is that we propose to repurpose earmark reserves to a quantum of £5,169,000. We propose the disposal by sale of Venture House. I would note at this stage the figure proposed is not a list price, but is after all costs and fees have been removed, and that we forthwith commit to enabling works at the Birmingham Road site to a value of £2 million. I would note at this stage that none of the options that were looked at and assessed as being of high risk have been released, and I do not propose to release those at any stage in the certainly medium-term future. Indeed, in some cases, they may now be looking rather low in view of what previously been said. Leader, this project has been in response to observations made both by our peer reviewers and our external auditors. Both observed that we have considerable reserves as an authority, and the peer challenge encouraged us to use our relative financial strength to benefit the community and to press on with strategic priorities. We are operating in a difficult environment, and it will not be without challenge. I have to rely on officers and you as portfolio holders to use your good offices and secure best value, particularly as regards inflation in the construction sector. A number of the sectors that we're looking to are going to involve construction. I'd also say this paper doesn't prevent those funds from being used for their originally intended purpose. It just frees them up for delivery. So rather than locking them away and then doing nothing because there's no allocated funding available, it gives us a bit more liquidity and allows us to be pleased with it. I submit it's both a resilient and proper approach. I commend it to the Cabinet. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Strachan. I'll just jump in and say I fully welcome this. It won't be a surprise to anybody whatsoever that we're freeing up cash to put it to good use, that we tax for a purpose, right? We tax because we want to make the area that we live in a better place, and this demonstrates that we're doing that. It is also right that we do it in a careful and prudential way, and I'm assured by both your Councillor Strachan and Mr Thomas's view of how we've approached this in a way that allows us to balance the budget over the medium term, as well as our aspiration to come to life. So this is a brilliant approach. Welcome questions on it. I think Councillor Lax and Councillor Smith. Thank you.
Really got some questions other than to endorse what Robert said in his presentation and Doug's follow-up, and just to say thank you very much, Anthony and Rob, who's been looking at all this, for the way it's been presented to us as Cabinet members, to fully appreciate what the risks are, what they're not, and why we're endorsing taking the decision we are, because it's a lot of money and that we have a duty to use our money and our reserves in the most effective way we can to make this district a better place. And given that the peer review, I think it was the gentleman from Exeter City Council, made the very strong point that we, you know, given the level of reserves, there's things that we can do, would be right to do, rather than just have them sitting somewhere because you're shaping place or whatever you decide to do with it. So I just say thank you very much. I understood it all on actual pictures, which, you know, makes you comfortable in the decisions we're being asked to make. So thank you once again.
Brilliant. Thank you. Let's
Actually, Doug, I think yourself and Andrew have completely covered what I was going to say.
brilliant. No, thank you. Councillor Reedy.
Thank you. You made a comment in your introduction of the paper, and I guess punchline where I'm trying to get to is just to draw you and make you almost reconfirm it again. We shouldn't tuck money away for a purpose that we fail to deliver. So absolutely, in the sense of releasing it or releasing these funds back in, so we can use them for a purpose that's here and now, it makes an awful lot of sense to me. Some of the things that we're releasing, I can look in good question, because the pressures that caused them to be allowed for in the first place remain there. And as we've talked about in your previous paper, there is new pressures. You could look at these in one hand and describe them as your rainy day funds. I think a good many people would suggest it's pouring and we're drowning as a community with the pressures that we're facing. So I guess the question that I'm trying to get to, and hopefully want you to reconfirm what I think you said earlier on, is if we take the money away from the rainy day funds and specific purposes that it was set for just now, and we use it for something else, will there still be money available for other needs that are emerging right now, in terms of, as we've touched on, supporting our local residents, supporting our local businesses, and making sure in the same way that they were able to get support that helped them through the COVID pandemic, that we as a council could consider obviously support if we feel government doesn't go far enough, as much as serving to bring forward things such as redevelopment of the city centre and the wider district thereafter.
Yes. It is a very simple answer, yes.
Don't mind signing that in blood. I'd be very happy.
Thank you. Any more? No, that's you then, councillor Strachan. Oh, sorry, no, councillor
Just going to summarise what Ian's just said and say, I say to my children, you must always have a rainy day fund. But it's a question mark, you use some of that fund and how much, and if you don't repair your roof or clear your drains, it causes worse problems. And I think that's what this paper makes clear, that I think we've got a balance that is the right balance, so we still have rainy day funds, but we are using what is appropriate to do so for the betterment, shall we say, of the district and our residents.
Yeah.
Thank you. I move recommendation 2.1 and 2.2 and note that I'll be making a very similar speech at October Council.
Looking forward to it. Brilliant. All those in favour can indicate. Great. Thank you, councillor Strachan, and thank you, Anthony. Final item on the agenda tonight then is the Lichfield District Youth Council policy proposal. I am bringing this paper tonight. We all know, so back in March this year, we moved our community power strategy, which focuses on how we better engage and understand with our communities and how do we genuinely take a collaborative approach to what we're doing. Part of that community power strategy, part of it states that we want to develop reciprocal relationships and combine institutional and community expertise. So part of reaching that objective, we want to create a youth council. We know that if you're under 18, clearly you don't get to sit in the chamber, you don't get a vote either. So how do we reach that part of our district? This is a policy proposal to address that, giving people, young people in the district between 11 and 18, an opportunity to sit for 2-year terms part of the youth council. Really importantly, we're going to stick to the budget behind that, £60,000 over the next 3 financial years to make that ambition a reality and ensure that no young person will be able to will be excluded because of budgetary restrictions, etc. So we will create some of that to be able to use for transport to get them here to the council chamber. I fully welcome this, obviously. I'm bringing it forward. I think it's a brilliant initiative. I think it allows us to really demonstrate that we're listening to what is currently an underrepresented demographic within the district council. We know how many times we go out for consultation and we see a great big 0 next to how many responses have we had from anyone between 0 and, I was going to say 0 and 18, sometimes between 0 and 24, we don't have any responses for whatsoever. We need to fix that. This is a step towards fixing that. I recommend it to you. Have a second questions. Councillors.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, I completely endorse this. I mean, the younger generation, they're the coming ones, and we need to really, really keen to get them involved in not just politics, but the wrong word, really getting them involved in how local government and the government and the country run. Some of those may want to get involved in helping run these things themselves in the future. If we will or we retire, so if they need to. So it's absolutely the right thing to do to spot the interest. Hopefully we'll get interest in that area. Yeah, I'd like to see future versions open to other schools. I think we've also done in the past. I think we're getting towards that. So that's all cool. Just one section, this is maybe minor detail in the risk analysis section. And you mentioned it in your intro that there's a risk about the inability for some students to attend Frog Lane due to a lack of available transport. Get that, fully agree. And our mitigation for that is use the budget to assist in the minibus to get the children in. Great. But it doesn't seem to change the current score. It's still red. So we've got a sort of a mitigant control there that hasn't really helped us. But I'm sure that's just an error.
I think that is an error in the value.
And the same with the same with risk C a little bit as well. But anyway, I think that's just an error in the paper.
Yeah, I think that's a failure in the paper.
I'd say they go to agree
to allow.
We didn't have transport, now we have got transport.
I agree, fully agree.
I've done it. Thanks.
Councillor Listener and Councillor.
Thank you. I think that I also welcome this paper, and I think not only will obviously hopefully engage with them within the local districts and then the policies, but also they will have budgets, etc. to look after. Obviously, I think that's lacking in the school today is how to manage your own budget as a household. You know, you say to them council tax, and they say what council tax, what you have to pay that for. So you know, I think you can certainly help with that as well. So I certainly welcome the paper, and I look forward to the first meetings being scheduled in.
Brilliant. I look forward to engaging with you as a rural councillor of how we ensure we reach young people right across the district, not just the main conurbations.
Certainly can. Certainly Councillor Muller.
Councillor Lax.
Thank you. I wouldn't for one moment suggest that, you know, those elected don't attend in person, because we all know what they've gone through during COVID. But one thing I would say to consider, it says get them here to Frog Lane, whether it rotates round an east, west, south, north axis at a convenient school. I think it's just something we should consider and factor in going forwards once we've got more schools and we've built the base.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think we in local government, we always want to try and create the perfect solution before we do anything. I think this demonstrates we're taking a step. Is it the perfect answer? Possibly not, but it's moving in the right direction, and no doubt over the coming years it will get refined until over the years we'll actually have something that really works with robust and resilient. So yeah, brilliant.
And we can ask them what they'd like to do and where they'd like to meet.
Now that is a novel idea. Yes. That's very neat.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge Councillor Wilcox was here, and I thought Overview and Scrutiny had a very in-depth discussion when this paper came forward, and it was really something that I welcome seeing, and hope that also Overview and Scrutiny will keep looking at the decisions that before they come to us and informing them, because I know a number of changes came from the input of members. To a certain extent, I'm going to come back to the point that Anthony raised, and I thought he was going to ask something else. If obviously getting the youth council to meet in a location is an issue, and we need to therefore think about transport. I know we ask the question about our own meetings to say, why do they have to be in person? Why can they not be, if nothing else, hybrid? I hope, seeing these are non-statutory meetings, that we would be exploring a hybrid option, so that not only could obviously people attend in person, but they can also attend from a remote location as well.
Okay, yeah. I'll bring in Councillor Smith and then I'll respond on that one.
I was just going to say, I actually doesn't normally happen. I actually disagree with you on that one, Ian, because I think yes, I completely agree on hybrid meetings for our council meetings where people are busy and doing that. But I think with something like this is all about getting them engaged. And I think it's a better thing to get them together in the same room in a building like the council chamber or wherever else. But I actually think for something like this, getting them together and engaged really helps. And I think the minibus solution is probably better, but it's not. Anyway, I'll,
Yeah.
sorry, Lee, I'll let you answer it.
No, no, it's fine. I think almost we don't need to worry about how it ends up operating. I think on with Councillor Smith that actually you're better off giving everyone the same experience, the same route, particularly for something that's starting up. However, as an absolute, backdrop, we know we've got the budget there, we know we've got hybrid technology. I think whatever route this ends up going down, we've got a solution which will address it, whether it's budget for transport, whether it's going down the hybrid solution. I think that the point back to my earlier point, is it perfect from day dot? Possibly not. It might be, who knows? It might be perfect straight away. I doubt it. But actually, through the iteration, we'll get it better and better until it works, and make sure that we're inclusive as we possibly can be. And no doubt we will either bring a paper back to the NS or back to Cabinet in the future about how it's operating and some of the successes we've seen. Any more questions, Councillor Rax?
No, it's just, given my portfolio with ecology and climate change, I really welcome and hope some great things come out of this from the demographic, because, they're our future. And a lot of them, we all care, but I think this could be a great dynamic as part of the engagement that my portfolio requires across all generations, businesses, you name it, schools, etc. So again, just fully endorse it. And I think actually endorsing Councillor Smith's point, if you've got a group of people all together, actually some of the great stuff happens when you're not in the formal meeting. So I think we start off in person, and then see how they want to develop it and what works for them.
Also get to know each other.
Excellent. In which case then move to recommendations at 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. All those in favour indicate it. Fantastic. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And that brings Cabinet meeting to a close. Thank you.